Talk to me a little bit, if you would, about the quality of the orchestra. It seems to me you can build a beautiful building. It can be acoustically perfect, as this is. But, you know, the players have to play.
You can't fake it.
That's exactly right.
You can't fake it.
You said it better than I did.
You know, you can paint all the walls and make them look very beautiful. In the end, if it doesn't sound good, you know, it's not going to sound good. The one thing, and I have to make sure that this comes through very clearly. My first love with this orchestra was with the orchestra. That was the first thing I came to know. When I gave my first downbeat on that Tuesday morning, my first rehearsal, I got up. I felt it. The orchestra immediately sounded great. But more than that, it was the discipline of the orchestra, which I thought was fabulous, especially given that the day before was Kenneth's memorial service. Obviously, this was an orchestra that was in deep mourning. It was an orchestra that was in shock, like most of the community was. And yet they rose to the occasion. That showed me that this was an orchestra in great shape. The players in this orchestra are really the jewel behind the institution. Because in the end, they're the ones that day after day have to be on stage delivering performances, whether it's in the classical or the pops or the education series. And I've always amazed about the level of hard work that each and every musician brings to their work. You have to remember, those of us who do this as musicians, we don't think of it as work. Whether you're a country musician or it doesn't matter. All of us became that because that's our calling. And we do it with pride and we do it with love. And from the very first time I stood in front of the players of the Nashville Symphony, it clicked. All of a sudden I realized, you know what, I don't have to say too much. Besides, they don't like listening. Musicians don't like conductors to talk too much. Just show me. You know, and from the very beginning, I realized, you know what? All I have to do is move my hands, and we understand each other. I work with great orchestras elsewhere in the world, and many of them, I find myself that, you know what? I have to talk too much, and even then, they don't understand me, and that's just chemistry. Like with any human relationship, with the Nashville Symphony, from the very first moment, I realized, you know what? This is an orchestra I can definitely relate to. They can understand me, and in the end, that is the perfect ingredient to producing fantastic performances.
Let me talk about you personally for a few minutes. Born in Nicaragua?
Yes, sir.
Reared in Costa Rica?
Yes.
Costa Rica. My great hero, Oscar Arias.
Yes.
From Costa
Current
Rica.
president.
Yes, great president he was. And then your parents were not musicians. I know the story, but it's a wonderful story. You became a percussionist, not a violinist, for the reason?
Where did you hear that story? I don't think I've told that story. I'm amazed. You've done your research. Well, first of all, I moved from Nicaragua to Costa Rica when I was 10 years old. You remember the Sandinistas took power of the war. We moved next door as refugees, my family. I came from a non-musical family. My parents, non-musicians, but smart parents. They wanted to keep me out of trouble. So the way to keep me out of trouble is keep me busy. So after school, they signed me up for the symphony. My dad always said that I had a good ear for music, which meant I could carry a tune. But again, nobody in my immediate family even knows how to read music. The first year you take solfege. You basically learn how to read music, which I did. But that whole year, I dreamt of being a violinist. I don't know what it was about it. That was my dream. And the second year that you get to choose your instrument, I knew that my instrument was going to be the violin. So I arrived on that Saturday morning, and the line for the violin aptitude test, I guess you have to make sure that you had long arms. I have no idea what it was. There were too many mothers with their little kids who wanted to be the next Jascha Heifetz. And I've always hated standing in line. So I was really bummed out that, you know, I was not going to spend that long. And right next door, there was another room that said percussion. And they had 2 kids in line. And I stood there. I didn't even know what percussion was. So I walked in, and I saw drums. I'm like, hey, drums, I can get into this. And somebody gave me a pair of sticks and said, here. And he said, go like this, click, click. And I went, click, click, I'm in.
That's a wonderful story.
And I never looked back.
Now, how is it? I mean, as a percussionist in the orchestra, you're way back there, almost out of sight of the audience, barely in the sight of the conductor. How is it now to be at the podium with the baton?
Well, I've always said that I dropped one stick and moved to the front. That's what I did. I mean, that's literally what I did.